Hey guys, so it has been a little while, right? 3 years is a long time. And I just had so many difficulties trying to set up this little simple video to record, and so it just made me push harder to record it because I felt like, well, maybe Satan is trying to keep me from reaching somebody, and I don't want that to happen. So here I am, 3 years later. Um, so everything I said in my original video about my brother's passing, I definitely stand by. I still have those same feelings of um, a sense of neglecting my responsibilities toward him and whatnot. I think this is a major reason why I haven't come back to you guys, is because I was waiting for some type of change. And I think I told you before that I didn't expect it, but I was still hoping for it. It sounds good. It sounds good to say that eventually it gets easier. But I'm not gonna lie to you, that hasn't been the case for me personally. Um but I didn't come here to tell you that, there's no hope for you, or um I haven't been able to live a as full a life as possible, um, even with those regrets and with those thoughts. Um, there are some things that I do on a regular basis to create routines for myself, and I'm sure my siblings have routines of their own as well. Um, I get the privilege of hosting my brother here in my home, and he is in my room, and there's kind of the quote from his service is set up right above where I keep his ashes. At one point, I and my siblings had jewelry, which I'm sure my siblings still do. I don't know what happened to my bracelet, but we have jewelry with his ashes in them, which some people found weird, and I found it comforting. So to each his own. My sister, one of my younger sisters, there's a group of three of us, and then there's a gap, and then there's another group of three of us. So the oldest from the second set, I'm the oldest from the first set. The oldest from the second set got this tattoo um, with the semicolon. Well, actually, does hers have a semicolon? I'm not sure. But hers says the same thing: I carry you with me. And I don't remember if I had this in a previous video, but um, that was something else that I found comforting and helpful, was to um, have that done. And I will wear the bracelet with his ashes on the same arm as the tattoo. That was something that was comforting for me. But I think it's all about a routine, especially during that first year. I would say I allowed myself a time period to grieve every day, because I had come to realize that this was just going to be a part of how I did things from this point on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't want to put a time limit on when it was appropriate for me to grieve, and when I should be over it by now, because like I said before, I don't think that there's an ending to grief. I think, sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days, and it's okay for both. And so, like I said, I created that routine. So every morning I would wake up and I would think about a memory, or if I felt like having a conversation with him, I would have a conversation with him. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's what I did. Um, I allotted myself a period of time in the mornings to cry and get it all out. And for me, that was in the shower. So I would get in the shower, bawl my eyes out, and when I got out, that was my allotted time for the day. And that was helpful. Um, it is, I don't know, it's hard for me to, I guess, find words of encouragement. It's more like do what works for you and don't let anybody tell you that what you're doing is wrong unless you're doing something toxic that can harm yourself or someone else. You know, grieve in the way that you feel comfortable and whatever way helps you to get through your life and the day. Another thing that helps me and that continues to help me through um, the grieving process is having people who have gone through it reach out to me, because that happened quite a lot, especially when I started sharing videos about mental health and whatnot. Um, I had quite a few people reach out and, offer words of encouragement or, you know, just let me know that they had been through the same thing and, they understood where I was coming from, and all of those things are helpful and I greatly appreciate it. And I definitely want to be that to someone else as well. I want to be a source of, again, I don't want to use the word encouragement, but a source of comfort, I guess, for someone else as well. But I find it interesting how, everyone grieves in different ways. And I'll tell you guys about a scenario, a situation I was in. Um, a previous relationship, and the person had lost a parent around the same time that I had lost my brother. Um, and it was interesting because his grief, which is hard to believe because every time I get in front of you guys, I cry. But his grief was more of an outward expression than mine. And I guess, like I said, because I have a routine of, doing things the way that I'm comfortable with. But his grief was more of an outward expression and it was more frequent than mine. I didn't, when I talk about my brother, I talk about him in the present tense. I talk about happy things, good memories. I don't talk about him as if he is gone somewhere else, because my personal belief is that, excuse me, is that we never truly part with the universe. And so some part of us, however that, excuse me, however that manifests itself, some part of us is always here. Some piece of us is always here. So for me, although I miss him, he's still present. And this person, because I didn't grieve in that way, would make comments like, well, you don't understand what I'm going through because you haven't lost a parent. Which, rightfully so, I have not lost a parent. But I don't understand. Here's what I don't understand. And maybe I won't understand, until I'm in that situation. But my brother was just as close to me as any other person could have been. And I don't honestly think that it's about the person you lose per se, but more about the connection that you have with that person. Some people lose parents and they don't bat an eyelash because they didn't have that connection with them. My brother was very special to me and I did have a connection with him, and so that loss was great. whereas maybe, you know, another loss wouldn't have impacted me as much. But I never felt the need to compare our losses. I respected that person's loss and, you know, tried to find ways to comfort them, whereas they pretty much would belittle my loss. And they talked about it so frequently that I felt like when I would bring up, you know, how I felt about my loss, it was not, it was always, well, at least, or basically not as significant as the loss that they had experienced. I find that really weird. I find it very, 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 very odd and a little bit sick. But hey, everybody's different. Everybody's different and everybody grieves differently. But I think it's important that in our grief that we don't minimize anyone else's grief. That, you know, loss is loss. And I don't think it's comparable, just period. I just don't. Anyway, that was just an interesting little story. But I will say that, you know, my family and I are doing okay. We talk about my brother often. We love him dearly. We talk about the memories, and like I said, we talk about him as if he were still here upstairs in his room, refusing to come out because he didn't like to be around people much. And he thought we were all crazy. He would run from us all the time. We would drag him out of his room and he would run from us. That's how I remember him. That's how I keep his memory alive. Me, both myself and my siblings and my children. And oh my gosh, I guess that's pretty much it. Nothing has really changed. And so I guess that is the end of my updates. If you guys have any questions you want to ask, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Always feel free to email me, or you can excuse me, you can DM me at on Instagram at founderktlt, and I will be happy to have a conversation with you or answer any questions that you have. And I hope that both that first video and this video has been helpful in some way, shape, or form. But if it hasn't, like I said, just tell me how it can be, and I will be happy to help.